Hi guys, good to see you again. Hope you're all fine with good health and hygiene. Happy to meet you through this video as many of you have requested me to teach you or to guide you to understand tenses. So here I am, and today's video is going to be an introduction to tenses. So those who are watching me or those who are watching my video for the first time, I am Louis Das from English Easy Louis channel, trying to help the viewers to understand grammar in English. So subscribe my channel, inform your friends, relatives and people who are close by to make use of my videos so that the videos I release will come to you as immediately as possible, and then you may be able to view as a continuous process by which you can understand the grammar better and better day by day. Okay guys, now as I said, I am going to begin to guide you to understand what is tense is all about. But before we move on to what is tense in English, we must understand what is tense after all. What is tense? Even when you hear the word tense, literally it means that we are in a tensed mood. We are in what we can say, what we can arrive at is that kind of a tensed mood, very tight. To some extent it is true, you see, because whenever we want to learn or whenever we would like to do exercises in tenses, it is like mathematics sometimes. It is like mathematics. You get into all sorts of feelings. What would be the correct tense to fill in the blanks appropriately? And what is the verb that I can use correctly to fill the blanks and get more marks? So these are a few of the basic fear, hesitation that all of us may face with when we talk about tenses. So before we go into that big, huge ocean of what is tense is all about, first of all we need to understand what are we going to discuss in tense. So whenever we think of tense, immediately what comes to our mind? Can you think of it? Immediately, whenever we hear the word tense, see, whenever we hear the word tense, what other words that comes to our mind immediately? What do we deal in tenses actually? When we write sentences, how do we write sentences with the proper meaning? So by knowing that particular word, we may say that we are in a correct track, right track. So those who know, be happy. Those who do not know or those who are still unaware of what am I referring to or what am I going to say, pay attention to and try to learn from at least today onwards. Okay, so immediately when we talk about tense, immediately our mind goes or should go to what is known as verb. See, this is a huge word, 4-letter word, by which almost the complete grammar item is done with in English. Of course, this is one of the parts of speech in English. We all know that. This is one of the parts of speech. We all know that. But then when we talk about tense, without saying anything or without mentioning of this particular term, we cannot do justice when we learn about tenses, because ultimately we deal with verbs. So what I thought, it would be nice that before we go into the tense in particular, a kind of introduction, or by way of introducing tenses, I thought we would deal with understanding different types of verb or kinds of verb, so that it will be easy for us when we talk about different tenses later on. Okay, so try to pay close attention. This will be of great help to you. This will be of great help to you. Right, see? Okay, verb now. Now, what is a verb actually? Verb is, we all know that it is a doing word. See? Doing word, you may call it, or you may call it as an action word. Action word in a sentence. Now, why do we call this doing words or action word? The verb. Because, see, for example, let me write a sentence on the board here. Suresh runs fast. Suresh runs fast. Now, what is your verb here? This is verb, runs. Now, what does this word runs tell you actually from this sentence here? When you read the sentence, it tells you what the subject is doing, or what the subject is at. And what the subject is at. Suresh is running, or he runs. So without this word, can you think of the sentence here? Impossible. So that's why we call verb as a doing word, action word. It tells the subject, or it motivates the subject to do something in a sentence, by which we can understand what the subject is doing in a sentence. Alright? So doing word or action word, whatever you may call it, a simple literary definition that we could give to the verb for the time being. Okay, for the time being, just hold on. Okay, good. Doing word, action word. Now immediately I will rub this off as soon as I explain, maybe one or two minutes after 3 or 4 minutes, so that it goes into your mind. Because this is a class-like thing. I am not showing you any printed material by the side. Okay, this is verb, and then you can just go through it and all that. No. So I am just taking it as a class. So whenever you watch my video, you will have to sit. If you just skip my video, otherwise you will have a lot of problem to understand later on when you come and watch from the middle. So therefore, you need to pay close attention to and sit and watch. So I am just making you to relax and then sit and watch my video only when you are with me in the video or in the class. When I am teaching, you will understand what is going on here. Otherwise, just for the sake of coming and switching on the video and going may not help you. So therefore, this is a serious thing that I am talking about, because grammar is something that we need to understand, pay attention to, if you want to improve in many ways to speak good English. I was talking to you about how to speak English fluently. In one of my videos I have said how to speak English fluently. What is fluency after all? Talking smoothly, using nice words appropriately at the appropriate places, increasing our vocabulary. So all these things are there. Okay, so it is better that you watch and listen to me very, very attentively, pay attention. Then only we will be able to understand. Okay, now we know verb is an action word or doing word. Now you can classify all these verbs into many kinds. So I'm just going to write the names only, but we are worried only about the tense now. So after writing all those different classification of nouns, we will just stick to one or two only, because those are the verbs that we need to understand tenses. But before that, it is better that we know all these verbs are existing there. But after completing the tense, we will come back to all these verbs one by one. So first of all, when I talk about verb, you can classify into many, about 6 or 7 kinds there. Now the first one would be regular verb. First one could be regular verbs, and then irregular verbs. Irregular verbs, and then you have what is known as transitive verb. And then of course you have intransitive verb. Intransitive verbs, and then you have auxiliary verbs, and you have dynamic verbs, dynamic. So like that you can go on listing. You can go on listing many verbs. And there are verbs like linking verbs also. Sometimes you can call it linking verb. Okay, these are few of the classifications that we can arrive at when we talk about verb. Now I have written this in singular. You may call it as in plural also. Now, for our purpose, we are going to concentrate only on these two, regular verbs and irregular verbs, because we are going to study, or we are going to learn what is tense is all about. So therefore, if you understand thoroughly well the regular verbs or irregular verbs, we can come to a conclusion how we are going to use all these verbs in different tenses. Okay, for the time being, let us be reminded that there are verbs of these kinds in English, but for the purpose of learning tenses, we are going to concentrate only on regular verbs and irregular verbs. Is that clear? Okay, so I am just going to rub this off again. Good. Right now, see, let me write verb there, because we are discussing about verbs now. So let me write there. Now I said regular verbs, irregular verbs. And to learn about regular verbs and irregular verbs, we need to know what are different ways by which we can understand. Or first of all, we need to know what is a verb. If I say write a word on the board, can we say that it is a verb? How can we say that particular word is a verb? So that is what is tense. So therefore, before we go into that, we need to have a better understanding of different parts of verb, different forms. In other words, we can call it different forms of verbs in English. And basically, if you have learned earlier, you may have heard of these words. What are they? You may have heard of these words. What you know as V1, verb 1. See? Verb 1, verb 2, verb 3, verb 4. See? Now what are these V1, V2, V3, V4? Without knowing this, how can we enter into the field of tense or grammar? Tense. So let us have a better understanding these. Let us have a better understanding of these categories. Then we will move on to the next step. Now, what is V1 after all? What is V1? See, whenever we write a verb, and mostly it will be in simple present tense. Simple present tense. Okay, let me write a verb here. What is the verb that we can think of? Say, for example, talk. So talk is a verb that I am writing here. And whenever you don't find any S or ED or EL, you can clearly have a conclusion that it is in simple present tense. And sometimes you may have yes there added. Yes, so I will come back to that later. Little later I will come back to that. So talk. And this is what is known as verb 1. Verb 1. And then what is verb 2 now? Verb 2 is nothing but the past tense of this verb. Past tense of this verb. Past tense of these verbs. Now talked. This is verb 2. Now what is verb 3? What is verb 3 now? Verb 3 is nothing but again it is talked. Talked. Verb 3 is also talked here. And of course you have the verb 4. Or will be ending in ing. That you may call it as present participle, talking, ending with ing, verb 4. But mostly we don't call that, we don't use that verb 4, but let us be reminded of that. There is this category also in English, verb 4. Alright? Now, I have written the V1, V2, V3, V4, and there is one more. When you say V1, then I write talks. This is also verb 1. Because when you add yes to the main verb, it is in simple present tense always. Now when do we add yes to the main verb? We will come back to that later. But remember, these are the different categories that we can think of: V1, V2, V3 and V4. Now what do we call this V1, V2, V3, V4? We call that as present tense. See? We call that as present tense, past tense, past participle, past participle. I think let me write it here so that it will be easy for you. Because you are going to write a few words here, so let me write it here. So present tense, past tense, past participle, present participle. Is that clear? Present participle. Now these are the 4 forms that we could give to one verb here in English. Now this is what we call that as V1, and this is what we call that as V2, and this is V3, and this is V4. See? Now let me write the same verb here. Talk. Talk. Maybe talks. Okay? So talk will come under here. Verb 3 also talked. And here of course you have the verb talking. Let me write one more example. Of course, you can have yes always. So V1, of course, you may call it as VS also. So that try to remember. VS means adding S to the main verb. Let me write another verb here. Walk. Walked. Past tense. Past participle also. Walked and then walking. Walking. Now I can go on writing many words there. Now look at this. I am coming to the point now. Look at the two verbs that I have written here. Walk and talk. Walk and talk. And here you have talked and walked. Similarly, you have talked and walked. Okay? Now understand it very clearly. When you see the word here talk in present tense, if the same word is repeated in past tense and in past participle, of course you have certain additions like suffixes, ed added there, ed is added there, sometimes t also will be added. So you have the root word repeated in all the 3 or 4 forms of the verbs. See, you have the word talk here, you have the word talk, walk, walk, walk. So remember, there are certain V2 or past tense, past participle, they end in ed. Okay, that is the first thing that we need to remember, ed. Okay, ed. So this is what is known as regular verbs. See, regular verb. Told you, regular verbs. Now why do we call that as regular? Because you don't erase the root word from the present tense here. Form 1, form 2, form 3, form 4, and all that. So you don't erase. Talk, walk, talked, walked, all the words are here. That's why we call that as the regular verb. Now let me go to another example here. Another example. See now. Now let me make another word here. Simple verb. There are thousands and thousands of verbs in English. In fact, if you are going to study tense, unless we know many and many verbs in English, we won't be able to write the correct sentences, meaningful sentences in English. Which means, in other words, we need to have a lot of vocabulary and we need to have a lot of verbs written in all the 4 forms. We must be knowing the different forms of all the verbs. So constant practice, constant study, constant concentration on the increasing of the vocabulary is a must here. So that you must be very, very careful about it and sincere and be attentive. Okay? Now, if I write the word go, what is your past tense here? Went. What is your past participle? Gone. And here of course you have going. Okay? And then write, wrote, written, writing, sleep, slept, sleeping, eat, can go on writing, eat, ate, eaten, eating, eat, ate, eaten, eating. Now what is the difference that you find from these two verbs to these words here? Of course you have certain kind of similarities here. But then certainly, look at this one here. You have the word over here, but completely different word here. Went. Gone. Of course you may say, sir, there is a word over there. Understood. But then immediately, you cannot jump into conclusion like that. Here also you have going. Look at this word here. Write. Wrote. Written. Writing. Sleep, slept, slept, sleeping. Eat, ate, eaten, eating. Since you have the different words in 4 forms of the list here, you may call it as irregular verbs. See, irregular verbs. Irregular verbs. Irregular verbs. If I write the word cut here, past tense also cut, past participle also cut, and here of course you have adding ing, cutting, cut, 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 put. So there are few words where you have all the words written together. So all these verbs are called irregular verbs. Irregular verbs. Now only these kind of verbs that we are going to make use of them when we are going to learn about tenses. So before we learn about tenses, we need to know at least to some extent, depending upon our intelligence and knowledge, at least we should know about 50 to 100 verbs. Of course, we may know more than those 50 to 100 verbs. Maybe few of us know more than 1000 verbs. If we do not know the verbs, there are sources available. Go to dictionary, find out. In bracket, whenever you try to find the word in dictionary, in bracket they would have mentioned, after writing the word, they would have mentioned as N or V or adjective and all that. So, whenever you find the alphabet V here, you may understand that it is a verb. N stands for noun and ADG stands for adjective. So, regular verbs and irregular verbs. V1, V2, V3. V1, V2, V3. So these verbs are used at different intervals, at different levels, proportionate depending upon the usages of the tense in various sentences in English. So depending upon that, we are going to learn about tenses. Now there is one more thing that I want you to understand and have it clear in your mind. Past participle. See, you have the same word past participle here, and the past tense also same. Walked, walked. But here, of course, you have different word ending with en. There are certain words ending with ed. There are certain words ending with the t. T as past tense and past participle. Now, you have to understand very clearly what is past tense and what is past participle when you have the same verb written in V2 and in V3. So, you may have the confusion now. So, let me give an example and show to you. When can a same verb act as a past participle V3, and when can the same verb act as a past tense, simple past tense? Now this difficulty will come to you only when you have ed added to the root verb. Certainly, if a word ends in en, automatically you can understand that is V3. Now the difficulty, for example, you have the two words talk and talked. Now remember here, my friend, let me write that sentence here and show to you. My friend talked with me for say 20 minutes. Talked with me for 20 minutes. Let me write another sentence. Same sentence can be my friend had or have talked with me my friend had talked with me say for example 2 hours. My friend had talked with me 2 hours. You can have before saying for 2 hours. For 2 hours. Now look at the verb here. Talked. Talked is your verb here. And you also have the talked here. Now the verb here it is used as past tense. This is past tense. And here it is past participle. This is past participle, this is past tense. So you must be, or you must have come to a understanding to some extent. When does the same word can be pronounced or used as past participle and as past tense. Now look at this sentence here. My friend talked with me for 20 minutes. You don't find any verb or something additional word before the main verb here. Before the main verb here. And you have the suffix what is known as ed, talked. So when you don't have any word like verb prior to the main verb, and you can understand that it is in past tense. Now when does the same word act as past participle? Now look at this verb here. What is your tense here? Of course we are not talking about tense, but I am just giving you a clue beforehand. And has, have, had. These are the three different auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs. Now we have done with auxiliary verbs when we are doing with the question tags. See? Now these are all used for perfect forms. Perfect forms. Has, have, had. They are all used for perfect forms. When we come to learn about perfect tenses, we will come back to that more and learn more about these words. And they are all used as verbs, auxiliary verbs before the main verb. So remember, when your main verb is written along with the perfect form of the auxiliary verbs, either it could be past perfect or present perfect. It can be had talked or have talked or has talked. But of course, your subject will vary when you have have or has. So this is a basic understanding that we must be able to remember. When you find an auxiliary verb added or perfect auxiliary verb added before the main verb, and that particular verb is known or acting as past participle. And what is the basic rule that you need to understand? Again, after writing has, have, had, you must always write only the third form of the verb, verb 3. After writing the perfect form of has, have, had, you will have to write only the third form of the main verb, which is V3, we call it verb 3. You understand? See? So this is how we must be very clear in understanding what is past tense and what is past participle. When does the same word act as past tense, or when does the same word or similar word act as a past participle? Is that clear? Is that clear? So, because this is very much necessary when we are moving to understand more about tenses in particular. Now, after I introduce or after I deal with all kinds of tenses, I am also going to help you to understand when those tenses are going to be used, or when can we use what tense, because we cannot be using always present tense. There are certain methods, there are certain ways, there are certain periods, times. We must use only particular type of tense. We always cannot use past tense, we always cannot use present tense. So all these things are there. So when we come to learn more about tenses one by one, I am going to help you to understand what are the timings. Tense is, of course, again you must understand that it is referring to time also, referring to time. So when we are going to talk about tenses more and more in the next classes, all these things will be brought into light for your reference, and then we will be able to understand more clearly what is tense is all about. So this is a kind of introduction with which I can basically be happy that you have the basic knowledge of what I am going to talk about in the future and discuss with you about tenses. Are you clear? Are you with me? This is very clear, very clear. Boys and girls, people who want to learn grammar more and more, all can be made use of this one whenever you watch the video like this. So this is the kind of introduction that I can guarantee you, with which you are going to understand about tenses thoroughly well in the future. So today, to begin with, I have said about the introduction. Today, to begin with, we will try to have maybe 1% of what is the first tense. Of course, we know the number of tenses, but what is the first tense, that we need to understand. So we are going to learn about the first tense in English. But remember, whenever we talk about tenses, make sure that you go through and underline whenever you read a book, whenever you read an article, whenever you read an article from the magazine. Understand, underline what is the verb, what is the verb. Then only, and after underlining the verb, when we complete knowing or learning all about tenses, we will come to know whether what you have underlined is present tense or past tense or future tense or present perfect or past perfect or future perfect or present perfect continuous is all about. So we will come to know and we will be able to understand better in the future. Okay guys, so let me wrap up for the time being the board, and then we will just discuss for about 5 minutes what is present tense is all about. What is present tense is all about. See, that is because that is the first tense that we are going to talk with. Okay, things are getting more and more difficult, aren't they? You feel things are getting more and more difficult? No, certainly not, because I have said several times in my videos, grammar is like mathematics. If you had understood, if you have listened to very well, it will come as calculation, addition, subtraction, division and all that. Very easy, grammar. Okay, now let me write a sentence on the board, and we are just going to discuss few points about the present tense, because the first First tense we are going to learn is simple present tense. Simple present tense. Now you know how many tenses are there in English. That also you must be very familiar with. How many tenses are there in English? Few might say, sir, there are only 3 tenses. What are they? Present tense, past tense and future tense. Of course, to some extent they are true. There are only 3 basic tenses, present, past and future. But these 3 tenses are classified into different categories. These 3 tenses are classified into 3 different categories. See now, so let me write before we discuss about present and past tense. See, present, past and future. See, present tense, past tense and future tense. These are the 3 basic categories under which there are classifications made. So under present tense, what you have? You have the continuous, perfect, and you have the perfect continuous tense. Perfect continuous. See? So here you have 4 tenses referring to present conditions on various occasions. Let's consider these as 1, 2, 3, 4. See? Similarly, you have in the past, you have continuous, perfect, perfect continuous. Okay, perfect continuous. Similarly, you have this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 plus 4, 8. And then you have continuous, future continuous. See, future perfect and future perfect continuous. How many there are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So your answer is correct. There are only 3 tenses basically, but then classification of these tenses comprise of 12. So there are 12 tenses. There are 12 tenses. See, there are 12 tenses. Now how to remember these tenses, that is also an important matter that we need to understand it clearly. Either you can remember it by saying present tense, past tense, future tense, present continuous, past continuous, future continuous, or present perfect, past perfect and future perfect, or present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous. So this is one way that you can remember. If you find it difficult, you can remember straight away, you can remember like this: present continuous, present perfect continuous. So similarly, what I have written on the board here is another way of keeping in our mind very easily the names of 12 tenses. And remember, all these 12 tenses are known as active voice tenses. We are not going into active voice, passive voice, but I just want you to have a sound going in your ear. Okay, 12 tenses, all these 12 tenses are called active voice tenses. Now why do I say active voice tenses? I'll come back to that later. Okay guys, so these are the 12 different tenses in English. There are 12 tenses in English. So as I told you, we'll just discuss for about 1 or 2 minutes the first sentence, present tense. What is it all about? Just I am going to concentrate only on two examples here. Let me write a sentence here. See now. I teach grammar. I teach grammar. He teaches grammar. He teaches grammar. Now, since this verb is a little bit, we are adding now es, I am adding es here. Let me write another example. We learn about tenses. She learns about tenses. Now what is your verb here? Learn and learns. Teach, teaches, learn, learns. Now why do I use the verb teach here and say present tense? Because this is the first tense in English. It is known as present tense, and when we write any tense without writing any auxiliary verb before or any addition after the root verb. So this is in simple present tense. Now for the same verb I have added yes here, but your subject is changed. Here I have written I, here of course we have written he. Similarly, look at this sentence here. We learn about tenses and she learns about tenses. She learns about tenses. Now why do I add yes here, yes there, yes here? Remember, this is the basic rule. Whenever you have the subject as third person singular as a subject, whenever you come across the subject as third person singular and the tense is simple present tense, you must add yes to the main verb. Let me repeat it again. If your subject is third person singular and the tense is simple present tense, you must add yes to the main verb. That is the basic rule. Now few may question, sir, what is third person singular? It's a silly question you may ask me, but there are few who are not able to even identify what are the three different persons. Whenever we talk about three different persons, we talk about what? Subjective pronouns, remember. Let me say that also. I, we, you, he, she, it, they. See? They are all called subjective pronouns. And these two are called first person. These two you are called second persons. These four are called third persons. And this I is first person singular. We is third person plural. This you is singular. One you is singular, another one is plural, second person singular and plural. Now all these three, he, she, it, they are all known as third person singulars. And this is third person plural. You get what I mean now? So, when do we use or when do we add yes to the main verb in the sentence? When you have the subject as third person singular, either he or she or it or subjects, and your tense is simple present tense, you must add yes to the main verb. So that is the basic rule in English. to learn about present tense. I think this is enough for today. Let me stop this video, and if you can just go through one by one with the examples that I had given you today, you may have the better understanding of the tense in the next coming days and weeks of my videos, where I am going to discuss every tense in a detailed manner. Every tense. After introducing every tense, I am going to tell you, I am going to help you to understand when can we use that particular tense. Then only you will be able to understand it better. So, be ready, be alert, and be active. Be active and attentive. And you must be joyful. As I said, you must be joyful in learning about grammar, especially tenses, especially tense. So, unless you have the creativity, unless you have the clear cut in your mind, creativity in your mind that you are going to write something, you are going to learn something new, that you must bring the creativity from your mind. Okay, so this is a chance for me, this is an opportunity for me. So I just would like to make use of this opportunity and try to learn as better as possible grammar. Okay guys, so I think this is enough. This is a kind of an introduction that I have given you today. So let me stop here. Before I close, as usual, subscribe my channel, click the bell icon, inform your friends and relatives, tell them to make use of my videos as immediately as possible. You can understand grammar. So before you go for the final exam this year, especially for the students, I can guarantee you, if you are listening to my videos, you are 100% sure that you are going to get full marks in grammar. But you must be very, very patient, very, very patient. Practice makes a person perfect, all right, but then patience also matters. Patience matters. When a doctor treats a patient, can a patient expect the cure or the treatment to be completed within a day or two? No, depending upon the treatment, it may take even 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years sometimes. So therefore, a patient needs patience. So similarly, while learning grammar, you need lot of patience. But all this patience will be able to help you, will reward you at the end. That I can guarantee. Okay guys, see you in the next video. Until then, bye.